bit more footage from the drone archive, starting out our Thursday afternoon segment of Forecast Lab. And we got quite a spring system on the Great Plains. So let's check it out. Here's a look at the southwest U.S. Looks like that cold front that was in northwest Mexico yesterday has moved quickly into the Central Plains, and this is an approximate position. I'm not entirely sure it's in that area right there, but it's the dry line, which possibly could be the front. That's shown up very well. There's some strong winds back behind the Pacific front, and I think the highest I'm seeing is at Dalhart right here. We've got 35 knots gusting to 44, so that's going to be close to 50 miles an hour. But that's not particularly uncommon in that area. This is just kind of a strong wind event there. Back behind it, a large area of high pressure in Baja California. That's the Pacific air driving eastward there. And then up to the north, we've got fresh polar air coming southward. It's not too cold, just 20s and 30s up there, but it is heading south, coming into northeast Colorado there. Out ahead of it, the tropical air is flowing northward. Don't see any real 70s dew points on the map except down near the coast, but plenty of mid-60s all the way northward. And I would probably put the moisture axis probably in this area right there. So as that front continues moving eastward, we could see storms going up in northeast Texas up to Oklahoma. Taking a look at the radar. Storms really don't look all that impressive, and I think I can see the outflow boundary right there. These appear to be outflow dominant and not particularly strong. Up to the north, I do see some stronger cells. Looks like just east of Ada. So we'll take a look at the Oklahoma City radar. And there we go. I think we've got a couple of cells that may be rotating. This is between Ada and McAllister. Storm relative velocity at this time is only showing about 30 to 40 knots of rotation right about there, but you can see it's embedded in that little vestige of a hook there. And going further up the line, looks kind of elevated and disorganized. Wichita radar not showing much of anything, even though we can see the towers on satellite. But all the way up north from Wichita, 160 miles away, we can see tops up to about 20 to 30,000 and even up to 34. And there's that activity on the Grand Island radar in Nebraska. Nothing too organized at this hour, but it does, it's probably a little bit of hail on some of these cells, with the upper levels being a little bit colder in Nebraska. So at this hour, not a whole lot going on. In the eastern U.S., we still see the advance of that tropical air all the way from Texas to the Carolinas. There it is heading north, and the warm front extends from Kansas to Kentucky. In the Maryland and Delaware area, there goes our outgoing low-pressure system. This is the same system that was in Illinois yesterday. It's moved east overnight, and we find it off the coast there, just off of New Jersey. And a look in the northeast U.S., we're still dominated by that big high in Quebec. That's located out in this region, but its influence is starting to be broken down by that passage of that outgoing system there in New Jersey, as well as the approach of the new Central Plains system. Yeah, there's another little boundary right there in Iowa. Let me add that on. Looks like it's going to be just like that. That's an inverted trough, and we probably have got a little outgoing shortwave working across that area, especially with the little vorticity center being shown there west of Des Moines. So what do we make of the Kansas-Oklahoma area? We kind of have the impression that maybe a dry line moved east or something like that. We also see some residual moisture around Wichita. Well, what we really need to do is go back and look at what happened last night. We can't just start with right now. Well, here's what happened overnight. We had MCSs all the way from Oklahoma into southern Kansas, eastern Kansas, and that pretty much chewed through all the moisture they had available. Let's run that through one more time. You can see one going through Oklahoma, another coming through overnight. This is about 4 a.m. and then more going through Kansas in the morning hours. So we've had quite a bit of moisture erosion taking place, and obviously that's going to shape any prospects for development in Kansas and Missouri. About the only relatively unaffected air we've had is down in this area here. So that's the reason some of our storms there in eastern Oklahoma and southwest Missouri look a little bit stronger. This is the high-resolution rapid refresh model looking at the dew points. So the area of unaffected moisture is down in this area from about Ardmore to Little Rock and up to the Boot Heel of Missouri. North of that, drier conditions. This is 50s dew points, and that's probably some of the outflow from southern Oklahoma overnight, which is kind of advected northeast during the day. So obviously a series of boundaries in that area, kind of a complicated setup. You'd probably want to sit down and analyze that and look at the radar and see what's going on exactly. There's been a little bit of air mass recovery in Wichita, it looks like. So you can see a little bit of a smaller moisture axis from about Tulsa up to Wichita. And so the boundaries are kind of complicated, but I'm kind of seeing something like that in my head. What's interesting is right near that little moisture axis triple point area, you can see a little bit of a turning in the wind field behind the front. So that's probably indicating maybe some pressure falls working on that area, helping to try to get something going. But I'm not too sure that's going to happen there because the moisture is fairly eroded. Pulling up a forecast sounding for the Wichita area. Yeah, there is some moisture depth, so I'm not sure I can totally write it off. It's a little bit weak, and lifted parcel gets some modest moisture in there. The other problem, though, is the atmosphere is really sheared, so that's probably helping to kill off some of these towers as they rise. See that? There's winds 75 knots up in the mid-levels. That's pretty stout there, good bulk shears. High bulk shear in a low instability environment makes it difficult to get towers organizing and persisting. However, we do have some decent 0 through 1 kilometer shear. There's the right motion vector, so that sweeps out a decent area. So maybe at least 1 to 200 storm probability values there. And the algorithmic tornado predictor going for tornadoes. So that means if we do get storms going and persisting, then we'll have a good setup for rotating storms and maybe a tornado. But in these highly sheared environments, I find the model convective forecast to be a little bit more helpful. And you can see going forward to 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., just not much convection. So we may not see that Wichita area come together. Better probabilities will be up north along the warm front. We haven't looked at that in too much detail, but yeah, the warm front is right up in this area. So we'll probably see a few cells on that tail end moving through the Omaha area into possibly southwestern Iowa around 6 or 7 p.m., and that might produce some activity in that area. Not too sure about this line down in Oklahoma and Missouri because there's not too much concentrated forcing along any part of that boundary. Kind of a uniform, homogeneous setup out ahead of that line. So it's anybody's guess where the strongest storms will come together, probably in that Interstate 40 area. And then towards dark, we just get kind of a solid line going from the Ozarks all the way down to Paris, Texas. So there's our forecast for tonight, a very large dry sector covering much of Kansas and Oklahoma by this evening. And as that moves eastward into Missouri and Arkansas, we'll probably see severe weather chances going up as that interacts with the moisture axis. By tomorrow morning, that area of storms should be moving eastward through the Ohio River Valley into Ohio and Kentucky, and the cold front will be right in there behind it, passing through Little Rock, Dallas, and Midland. 1044 millibar high, driving southward and bringing that cold air south through Minnesota and Wisconsin. By tomorrow evening, the fronts will be looking something like this. Looks like maybe a little bit of cyclogenesis in Alabama, but most of the storm activity will be back behind the front and should be elevated. That 1040 millibar high continues shifting to the southeast, and we get a large area of cold air advection working through the Great Lakes area into the Midwest. Upslope flow already starting in the high plains. There you can see it from Texas all the way up to Wyoming. So we'll probably see an increase in clouds in that area. By Saturday, we've got that big high-pressure area parked over the Great Lakes. So it should be a sunny day across much of the Midwest. Northerly winds, so it will be pretty cold. And that ridge goes all the way down into Texas. And we get right back into that cloudy pattern. Now, there is a fast southerly flow, and that's going to be bringing disturbances up and over the boundary, so that means we're going to see the clouds and rain return to Texas, and as a result, we get that area of showers starting to form in the Austin, San Antonio, Houston area. By Monday evening, the large polar high moves into the northeast U.S., and that puts much of the northeast U.S. proper under southerly flow and warm air advection and increasing clouds. So we'll see things start to get cloudy again in the Midwest, down into the southeast U.S., and then back in Texas, more aggressive northward movement with the warm front. So that'll be coming up on Austin and Lufkin and Lubbock during the evening. And that'll bring back the tropical air mass back once again, so I think by Monday it's going to be pretty warm in that area. Off the California coast, a new system approaching Southern California. There it is. That's mostly an upper-level low, so we're talking mostly showery activity. But, the models don't handle these systems that great, so this could be a small wild card for the start of the new week. So for Monday, this is a bit of a different picture than what we saw yesterday, so I think this points to the models having a bit of trouble handling that disturbance coming out of the Pacific, but it does cross the Rockies, and by Monday evening we see it developing areas of precipitation in Oklahoma and Kansas. Warm front continues lifting north through Dallas, and in the Pacific Northwest looks like Height Falls, as this big upper-level low starts to affect the Seattle area. And then one last frame for Tuesday. The Great Plains system moves into the Appalachian region, so an increase in clouds and precip there. Looks like another weak front sort of taken shape in Arizona and Utah as that upper-level low approaches. So this is going to be kind of a ripe area in the southwestern U.S. for baroclinic development. So I think we'll have to monitor that area. We may see more frontal activity start to affect the Great Plains by late in the week. And I think that's about all I have for tonight. I think we're going to take a break tomorrow and then come back Saturday. See how it goes. Anyway, thank you for joining. I hope you all stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you in a couple days. Bye-bye.